What's going on, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets. You're watching live on our FTN Network YouTube page. We do appreciate you. Smash the like button. Subscribe to our FTN Network YouTube page. It's all free. Randall's killing it, by the way. I wanted to give him a shout out right off the hop with the college basketball show on our FTN Network YouTube page. Guy is just pumping out winners left, right, and center. I love it. Fantastic stuff. Aaron Schatz went live. We have Jake Seeley in his show as well. Shout out to Walter Riddell. Lots of stuff happening over on our FTN Network YouTube page. If you're listening on iTunes and Spotify, we greatly appreciate your support as well. Lots to get to here on this show. We want to tee up the Monday Night Football game between the two birds, Philadelphia and Seattle. We got to talk about the quarterback play in Jalen Hurts and Geno Smith and what the heck is going on in that game. We want to recap some stuff from yesterday. We have some playoff picture stuff with you guys here in a little bit. NFC and AFC still completely wide open. The playoff race, maybe actually the NFL MVP race, maybe not as wide open. I still think it is, but as of today, Brock Purdy is a minus 190 favorite over at DraftKings to win the MVP. Another 4 touchdowns from Mr. Purdy yesterday. We will take a look at the NFL draft order as well, and we do have, taking a look at this morning, the odds have kind of stayed true over the past couple weeks. Caleb Williams is minus 650 to go number 1 overall in the upcoming NFL draft. So let's get after tonight. We got some NHL picks and some props. Had a great weekend on the ice in the NHL. Hopefully the slump is over. It's been a rough couple weeks. It was a wild ride in the NHL. I felt like, it was like down 30 units, and now we're on the positive side of things. We had a 20-1 same game parlay in the Sens game last night. So let's try to carry over there and on the ice and on the gridiron with some NFL stuff here. I do have some picks and some props. And like I said, hopefully we carry over. It was a good Sunday in both sports. Let's actually, before we get going, also a shout out to Vlad Sedler and the FTN Fantasy baseball draft kit is live. I know it's early. It's just December 18th, but it's not too early to get ahead of it, right? It's great reading material. I just saw Pitchers List had an article for free over there as well. Shout out to Pitchers List. They're fantastic. Promo code Otani for 15% off. It's got everything. High stakes fantasy. You got your rankings, projections from Vlad, all kinds of articles and content. I have my feet in there as well. And we'll talk some baseball on this show once the calendar turns to 2024 and the NFL season does slow down. I know a lot of people are in here to try to get some NFL stuff. Daily Handle, welcome in. Good afternoon. Welcome to you, good sir. Okay, so let's get after tonight. People are here for the picks. They're here for the props, I would assume. And let's start with just an overall landscape of what we're looking at here tonight. Prop Shop Parlay Calculator. Both tools are your friend. They're both free. They can save you a lot of time. I see Seattle plus 3.5 pretty much everywhere. Bet365 minus 110, minus 105 best price I'm seeing over at FanDuel. Plus 3.5 there. For the Eagles, again, the line has changed. They were 4-point favorites. They were 3. When word came down about Jalen Hurts yesterday, potentially missing this game, it moved to 2.5 in some spots for Philadelphia. It's back up to 3.5. What we know right now in terms of the quarterback play is it sounds like Geno Smith is out. According to reports, got an uphill battle to play in this game. He suffered the groin injury in practice late last week. 2 weeks ago, I guess. He missed last week's game. So it does sound like it's going to be Drew Lock. We'll talk about Drew Lock in a second. And I thought he did some decent things against the Niners. Man, it is a world of just backup quarterbacks, is it? And it's crazy. About 60 different quarterbacks. We just found out that Mitch Trubisky is benched, and we're going to see Mason Rudolph this weekend with the Steelers game. It's not going to help, but what are you going to do? Like if you're Tomlin and company, you're just trying to find something on offense to move the football. And so they're going to Mason Rudolph. According to Adam Schefter, I saw him earlier on the Pat McAfee show. He said that there was serious danger for Jalen Hurts to miss this game here tonight. First of all, I tweeted it yesterday, and I'm sure you guys are well aware. If you're waiting for Hurts, you got to have Marcus Mariota on the squad. I would say I would probably play Drew Lock over Marcus Mariota, like if you had the option between the two. But, I mean, have these guys on standby. You can't take any zeros. I know myself, and I have Jalen Hurts in a couple leagues. I need him tonight. I'm going up against him in a couple spots, too. It's going to be crazy. I don't know. Right now, it's nuts, right? You have to have a couple of backups on hand. But Schefter did say that he's traveling solo here to Seattle. The flu was that bad. They're chartering him on a solo plane. His teammates are already there. We know Darius Slay is not going to play. He had surgery for a knee injury, so he is sidelined here. How does it affect everybody in the offense? I think Jalen's going to power through, but it's just an educated guess. Like, you can say all you want that the guy is tough as hell and he'll power through everything that he powers through, and he'll try to find a way to get on the field. Is Michael Jordan flu game, all this stuff I'm seeing on social media. If you have him, I mean, you're playing him, right? There's no questions. But if he doesn't play, I would go to Drew Lock. I'd like the matchup. I think that he has a higher ceiling than Marcus Mariota. David Carr is going to get his wish. You're going to see Marcus Mariota in there maybe tonight and see what this Eagles offense looks like with him. And I don't think it would look good at all. So we'll see. In terms of props here tonight, I think because both quarterbacks, like Geno out, Drew Lock in, and Jalen Hurts potentially in, definitely going to battle through some things if he is playing. I think both teams are going to lean on the ground game here. And I know that you can throw on both squads. They're both inside the top 10 in terms of passing yards allowed. The Eagles have been the worst team in football against quarterbacks and wide receivers from a fantasy standpoint. Seattle not far behind. Like, this is a good matchup for a lot of the players in this game, like DK Metcalf and Lockett and JSN is trending up, AJ Brown and Devontae Smith. But I'm going to go to the running backs here, and I'm actually going to start with Kenneth Walker. I talked a little bit of Kenneth Walker on the Sirius XM show on Saturday. FTN Fantasy, we're with you every Saturday morning from 9 to 11 Eastern. Got a little bit of pushback from Jake Seeley and Lauren Carpenter. I get it. Kenneth Walker last week returned and wasn't fantastic in that game, but I have a feeling that it was just because it was his first game back. And I think that what we saw at the start of the season from Kenneth Walker, and I just mean really attempts. Look at the first few games, 12-17, ramped up 18-17, 19-26. A couple games, there was some injuries. We saw a little bit of Zach Charbonnet, missed 2 weeks, week 12 and week 13, returned to action last week, week 14 against the Niners, very tough spot. He had 8 carries and 21 rushing yards. He had 5 targets and 4 catches, which matched the season high that he had in week 1. And he had 33 receiving yards. Going to go over the distribution from Drew Lock in that game against the Niners. But I was seeing Kenneth Walker get a couple checkdowns, and it was, some of them were late in the game being down, and I totally get that, but it wasn't all just Zach Charbonnet, which is something we saw, midway through the season as he was the third down back. I think they're going to lean on Walker. And I if you look at overall at the numbers, you see the Eagles allow the fewest fantasy points to running backs, at least top bottom 3. I think it's the fewest heading into the week. And yards per carry, they were among the leaders for the first 8-9 weeks of the season. The last couple weeks, teams have run on them a little bit. And I know they haven't been super efficient. Like James Cook popped off yesterday against Dallas, and he wasn't super efficient against the Eagles on the ground, but they were that was kind of the turn of Buffalo. Not being as one-dimensional as we've seen over the past, leaning on the ground game, and credit to them yesterday winning that football game and leaning on the ground game. Josh Allen not having to do too much. But I've seen the Eagles lately, they have not been able to tackle. They've struggled tackling, and they've given up some big runs. And I know the issue is in the secondary at the moment, especially without Darius Slay. I'm sure Ringo is going to have his hands full here tonight with DK Metcalf. But I think we're going to see Seattle run the football. I think we're going to see both teams run the football. I like a lot of Kenneth Walker here today. I like the over 11.5 rushing attempts. I like the over 8.5 receiving yards. These are in order of how I like them. Over 1.5 catches as well, and over 45.5 rushing yards. According to our projections, see big edges in all of these, except for the rushing attempts. We have them for 12. I just have this feeling myself that it was the first game back, kind of a split between the two and Walker and Charbonnet. And now they go back to what they have done, or what they did at the start of the season, especially with Drew Lock under center. Lean on the ground game, run the football here with Walker. I would take anything over 12.5. If it gets up to 13.5, maybe I stay away. Probably be plus money. This is a decent price. I got all of these in the bet tracker. Prop Shop, again, is your friend. I want to give you guys the odds and the number, but none of these are too juice. Like Walker over 8.5 receiving yards is -110. The over 11.5 rushing attempts is -130. So, you get 12.5 maybe at a better number. And then I have over 45.5 rushing yards at -112. It's over at Bet River. So I guess the one that I like the least would probably be the catch prop at the 1.5 over receptions. But I like what I saw last week with some of the targets and some of the dump offs and checkdowns. And this is what we're working with here tonight, potentially two backup quarterbacks. And I think both teams are going to lean on the ground game here. So I am leading here with Kenneth Walker. And then I'm going to go over to DeAndre Swift. This one, clear. I mean, both, if you're game log chasing, they're both risky plays, right? Because Walker's played one game in the last three, and we saw Charbonnet. As for Swift, like, he's not getting any touches. It's just not really happening for him. Again, this is an educated guess, a feeling of how I think both teams are going to roll here tonight. And the offense, I talked on Friday how I like the under in this game overall. The Eagles' offense is sputtering. Now they're dealing with the illness of Jalen Hurts. And I just feel like you certainly can run on Seattle, right? You can run on Seattle more so than you can run on Philly. They've been a vulnerable defense on the ground all year long. Top 5 in fantasy points against the position. DeAndre Swift just 11 carries last week and 6 against San Fran. They were both games where they were out of it. I look at the previous weeks where Swift kind of got them going on offense, especially in the second half of games against the Bills and against the Kansas City Chiefs. Maybe it's something that I just would like to see from the team. I definitely see the fan base holding signs outside of the practice facility saying run the football. Nick Sirianni has addressed this as well, but I think that they do lean on the ground game here. I would love to see Rashad Penny active, and it's not even because it's against his former squad. This is what the Eagles do best. They run the football. They lean on the offensive line. Get back to that, right? The past couple weeks have not been good throwing the football. Yeah, I think that they get back to the ground game here. So over 13.5 rushing attempts, over 55.5 rushing yards. And I like the reception prop here at over 12.5 receiving yards. Nothing last week and just 11 in the 2 previous weeks. But for the most part, man, he went through a stretch where 23, 38, 40, 13, 31, 31. It just takes a catch for him to get to this number. So that's where I'm leaning the ground game for both squads here. There are some props that I like in terms of receivers. I'll go to Jackson Smith-Njigba here at over 3.5 catches at -115. I do have DK in the bet tracker at over 60 receiving yards. It's at 65.5 now. I still have the lean to the over. According to our projections, we have edges for all 3 of these wide receivers today. And it's updated with Darius Slay not playing here, with Ringo in the wide receiver cornerback matchup tool on DK Metcalf. Roby's been pretty good in the slot. I still like this number. So last week with Drew Lock against the Niners, he threw the ball 31 times. Again, pretty decent. Like, he threw 2 picks. Of course, he's going to throw picks. But 21 for 31, had the 2 touchdowns. And it was Jackson Smith-Njigba who led the way in targets. He had 7. He caught 4 of them for 25. I'm staying away from the receiving yard prop. He's kind of a short ADOT type of player. And, his long catch in that game was 11. But 3.5 here. Led the way with 7 targets. Next was Tyler Lockett. He caught all 6 of the targets that were thrown his way for 89. He's the big play guy inside this offense. I would consider yards for him as opposed to catches. Same sort of deal with DK, that he can pop off with a long grab. We saw it, on Thursday a couple weeks ago against Dallas. He had a long catch in that game of 26. Another deep threat guy, really, in the offense. He had the touchdown on the 5 targets. But I like JSN in this game. I also mentioned that Kenneth Walker had 5 targets. It went Jackson Smith with 7, Lockett 6, DK and Walker 5, and Fant, which I'm going to give a little bit of love to in a second. He had 4. And of course, those guys have a little bit of a rapport going back to the Denver days. Plus, the Eagles are really, really bad against tight ends. But I am going here with Jackson Smith-Njigba over 3.5. Nothing is official just yet. Geno, I don't believe, is ruled out. It just sounds like Drew Lock is going to play, and we're waiting. I tried to go as late as I could here to get a little bit more news on Jalen Hurts, and we'll see what happens. But Walker's the big player here for me, and then I go to JSN. On the Philadelphia side of things, after DeAndre Swift, I like Devontae Smith. And again, it's just I'm definitely not going to like Devontae and A.J. Brown if it is Marcus Mariota under center, and I would like Swift even more. I think regardless of the quarterback play, they're going to lean on the ground game, but I think they lean on it a little bit more if it is Marcus Mariota under center. Certainly the attempts would be something that I would definitely love, and a couple checkdowns there, here and there. But I think, even if Mariota plays, I would probably lean on Devontae more so than AJ. It's just really hard to predict. I'm just not going to like the offense as much. But I think that Hurts is going to play, and Devontae had 4.5. He should avoid Witherspoon, and 54.5 here receiving yards. So that's the Eagles wide receiver that I'm in on. This is what I have for touchdowns. Now, I'll say going back to the board, I guess I didn't even really give a pick off the top, which I normally do. I like the Eagles to win the game, but I've always been on board with Seattle covering the 3.5 that you can get right now. I don't care if it's Drew Lock. I still think that Seattle is going to keep this thing close. It's a tough environment to play football in Seattle. The Eagles are not clicking right now on offense. On defense, they're certainly not clicking. Matt Patricia is taking over some of the play calls here, taking over from Desai. He's taken over. I don't know if that's a good thing. I kind of think that it's probably something that should happen. Nick Sirianni said he wasn't going to make any changes, and it would kind of just flew under the radar. And it was announced yesterday by Jay Glazer of Fox, which did surprise me. It's interesting. There's no Darius Slay, and there's some sort of bad blood between Patricia and Slay going back to Detroit days. But it's a change needed to happen defensively, and Patricia's got a lot of experience as a DC. He's just not, we know that he's not a good head coach or an offensive play caller, which I know he hasn't done a whole lot of, but. He did do a little bit of that in New England last year. Unbelievable what happened in New England last year. Things haven't changed, I guess, for the Patriots this season. But I like Seattle to cover this game. The total has dropped considerably. I think we had the under 48.5 on Friday's show. I still lean the under 45 here. A 23-20 game would get you there. As I mentioned, both teams running the football, extending long drives. I think that's what you saw from the Eagles earlier in the season. That worked well for them. Long drives, 10 to 14 play drives, running the football, killing some clock here. And just with the offense struggling and potentially two backup quarterbacks and even a 50% of Jalen Hurts here, I got the lean to the under. But I think Seattle covers this. It's not going to, like I said, it's not going to be easy. And Seattle's a tough place to play. And there's a lot on the line for the Seattle Seahawks. There's a lot on the line for both teams here. Let's say what up to the crew. I think that's it. I actually had one more little thing. I got a lot of hockey plays here that I want to get to for you guys as well. And the hockey's been hot. So if you're looking for plays to stick around for a few more minutes, I know NFL is king. This is what I had for touchdowns when I was thinking last night and early this morning. I put Noah Fant in here as the long shot kind of deal. The Eagles have struggled against tight ends all year long. Middle of the field, they've really struggled against the position. And it is I'm not saying to play Noah Fant. I didn't even bother looking at his props here today. I mean, I suppose if it was like 2.5 catches plus money, 2.5 catches at plus 140 is very interesting to me. Very, very interesting. Here's the Eagles against tight ends. I'll roll through the game log. I know off the top of my head, like Hunter Henry and Hawkinson kind of ate them up earlier in the season. So 9th most in terms of fantasy points allowed to the position. 64 grabs is just outside the top 12 or so. It's really been the yardage inside the top 10 and then the touchdowns. So again, at the start of the season, Hunter Henry, even Gesicki in that game had a decent one. Hunter Henry and Gesicki combined for like 90 receiving yards, 8 grabs. Hawkinson had the 2 catches against them. Jake Ferguson had 91 yards and a touchdown. Logan Thomas had 44 yards and a touchdown. Travis Kelce, of course, he's a beast, but he had a touchdown in that game. Kittle, also another a beast in week 13, 68 yards. Kincaid, they kind of limited Kincaid. And then last week, Ferguson, 5 for 72. I'm not saying Noah Fant's going to have a fantastic game, but a plus 480 for an anytime touchdown. And the fact that he did get 4 targets, he had 2 grabs and 35 yards from his old teammate in Denver and current quarterback here, Drew Lock. I think it's intriguing. Middle of the field is where they definitely struggle. So I got AJ Brown, DeAndre Swift, Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf for the iTunes and Spotify listeners here. And then my dart throw would be Noah Fant at plus 480. And I do believe the over 19.5 receiving yards at minus 110 is interesting to me. And it's a dart throw pizza money at the plus 140 for 3 grabs here tonight. That's it for me. I think the Eagles win. I'd say it's like a 23-20 type game. Lean to the under. Seattle covers. Big Walker, big Swift stuff. I think I saw some questions on those two. How's everything going? I'll fix the car day. Mikey Boy G in the house. And hopefully we fix the car over the weekend. NFL's been hot. Man, Debo let us down. We had him for over 56.5. It's my fault. I tweeted out, how's this line so low? He had another big game. I think he's got like 7 or 8 touchdowns over the last 4 games. It's been unbelievable, but we needed him for 100 yards for like a 76-1 parlay. We had Amon-Ra in there at 100 yards, and we had Cooper Kupp as well. But hopefully you're following the NHL bets over at FTN bets, and the football ones have been really, the past couple weeks, I'm really happy. It was just don't want to give losers. And we're up over 20 units in the NFL, and we're on a positive side in the NHL. I need Kenneth Walker to score under 12 and a half full point. I think you are screwed. Yeah, I think you are. I just got this weird feeling about Walker, guys. I think Walker and Swift are going to get some touches. These guys are going to lean. These teams are going to lean on the ground game. In a full point PPR, if he finds the end zone, you're done, right? If he finds the end zone, you're done. I think he does score. Last minute Xmas gifts today. We have a couple Christmas gifts, a couple giveaways on Dango Bet Sally tomorrow. Stay tuned for that. Up 53 with JSN and Goddard still to go. Very nice. You're facing Swift, Hurts, AJ Brown, and DK. Need Hurts illness to have him hyper focused on his tight end. Yeah, I don't know what to expect in that one. In our work league, I have it's a super flex. I'm up against Vlad Sedler, and I have Hurts and Geno. I've picked up Mariota and Drew Lock. I also have Devontae Smith. I need like 60 some odd points. It's gonna be tough. It's gonna be tough sledding. Yeah, I don't know. Good luck. Walker or Swift. If you had the choice between the two to play, I would play Swift over Walker. I think there's a slightly higher ceiling, just the way that the Eagles can run the football in the offensive line. And like I said, I guess there's a little bit of risk here. I just got this feeling about Walker tonight getting some run, but I also have the same sort of feeling about DeAndre Swift. Slay can't get away from Patricia. No, you'll be watching on the couch here tonight, I do believe. Okay, I think that's it for tonight. If you hang on for another 5 minutes, I have some NHL props here for you. I want to dive into just a quick look at the playoff pitchers. So the NFC here tonight, with the three teams have clinched in the NFC. The Niners at 11-3. And Brock Purdy, as I mentioned, he is the MVP favorite here. Just another 4-touchdown game. He's first in everything. Yards per attempt, completion percentage, QBR, silly stats like wins. He's just number one. You want to sit here and make the case for CMC? I'm with you. CMC, 15 games where he scored a rushing or receiving touchdown. He's got 7 touchdowns this year against Arizona. I don't want to take anything away from McCaffrey, but my goodness, he is just eating up the Arizona Cardinals. He's got 20 total touchdowns. I think it's a quarterback award. I think Purdy's going to win it. Adrian Peterson's the last guy we've seen that wasn't a quarterback to win it. I know in the mid or to early 2000s, we saw Sean Alexander and LaDainian Tomlinson go back to back. I think maybe CMC gets Offensive Player of the Year. Does Tyreek get 2,000 total yards? I think if you're looking for a flyer at this point of the season, Josh Allen, I will say is 16-1 to win the MVP. If the Bills win out, maybe, right? He could have 50 total touchdowns. It's possible. I heard Tirico and Collinsworth get into it last night, and I thought they made some pretty good points on Lamar Jackson. If you're just like stat chasing for, MVP, like if that's how you're going to make the vote, then Lamar's not going to get it. But if, you watch last night's game and there was really nothing from the wide receivers. Like there was Zay Flowers is quiet. Odell Beckham Jr. I thought he was on the sidelines more than he was on the field. Isaiah Likely's been, he's been filling in for Mark Andrews. Really, really nice. That Likely touchdown call, which, is back-to-back games now. We'll be diving into him again, even against the Niners this week. That's going to be a fun game, San Fran. And maybe the MVP will be won in that game when the Ravens play the Niners this Monday. Maybe that will be the determining factor in who wins, but Lamar, when you watch him, it's like you just feel like he is the MVP on that team. He's one of the MVPs the way. And I know that he does a lot with his legs more so than his arms. And again, he's not going to have the same sort of passing yard numbers, the yards per attempt, the touchdowns. Not going to have any of that stuff when it comes to Josh Allen or Dak Prescott or Brock Purdy. But he, to me, like he won that game single-handedly yesterday, like escaping the pocket and eluding all the pressure that he gets and then hitting Likely down the field or extending with his legs. But the defense is really solid. You look at San Fran, they got all these yak monsters. Nearly, I think 52% of the yards that Brock Purdy has is yak yards after the catch. I'm going to take anything away from it. He's been great. He's making the decisions. The play calling is great. He's got Ayuk. He's got Debo. He's got Kittle. He's got CMC out of the backfield. I think you could certainly make a case for Christian McCaffrey. But as I said, this is a quarterback award. The long shots that it would take at this moment, if you weren't already watching the show and in on Purdy when we talked about him, he's entered the MVP conversation 3 times. I think we talked about him the second time. Dak Prescott at 9-1 we talked about. Now plus 450. I think dart throws at this point would be CMC at 12-1. Would be Josh Allen at 14-1. Should the Bills win out and they get the division, they play Miami in the final week of the season. That's possible. I think Tua's out the door. And I do believe Tyreek Hill, most likely not. That injury probably hurts him. Does he still get 2,000 total yards? It's possible that he does, but I would say yesterday was a bad game for Tyreek Hill. You know what I mean? Just because we got to look at the offense without Tyreek Hill, and they still balled out against the Jets and 30-plus points and Tua and Waddle. So, there's certainly a case throughout the year you could say this is Tyreek's award, because without Tyreek, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing, and they were pretty good yesterday. How about Raheem Mostert, another couple touchdowns, and him and Rashad White come to mind as like fantasy, and even Brock Purdy as fantasy football MVPs, as Brock Purdy going as quarterback 22 and Rashad White in the 6th, 7th round. Not efficient, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. All the touches, catching balls out of the backfield and eating up all the soft matchups he's had after the tough ones to start the season. And I would say that Raheem Mostert is going as like RB 55, 56. It's because everybody thought that they were going to get Dalvin Cook or, I don't know, Leonard Fournette. And it's like, it's so crazy to think about now. Yeah, you guys have any questions about tonight and starter sit? Like, leave them. We'll certainly address them here. If you're listening on iTunes and Spotify, at least still leave them in the comment section. I'll circle back before kickoff here tonight. I would start Lockett over JSN. I think there's a higher ceiling here for Tyler Lockett. I like JSN. I see that he's trending up as well. And, dynasty standpoint, you got a good one in JSN. And I think Lockett's off the squad next year, and he gets a little bit more work. But I would start William here. I would start Tyler Lockett. We haven't projected for more points. He did lead the way last week with Drew Lock in yards, and he was solid. And I just think the ceiling is slightly higher. And even in a full-point PPR league, a little bit of a boost to JSN in a full-point PPR league, but ultimately I would go with Tyler Lockett. I'll just give you a sneak peek of what the projections do say for the Seattle wide receivers. And like I said, we do have Drew Lock going in, and the projections is not totally official as of right now, but we have Lockett for 10.1 points, fantasy points. We have him for 4.6 grabs and 56.5 receiving yards. So again, his receiving yard prop is in the high 40s. So we see an edge there. DK Metcalf, his receiving yard prop, I think, is creeped up to 64.5. We have him the tracker at 60. We have him for 68 yards on 4.7 grabs at 12 fantasy points. For JSN, we have at 9. So just slightly below Tyler Lockett. A same amount of targets. We have him for 4.9 catches, but fewer yards, and the projections for the touchdown slightly lower. So I would lean with Tyler Lockett in that spot. I know he's going to see Bradbury, but Bradbury hasn't been fantastic. Let's get back and look at the playoff picture for a second here. So the Niners at 11-3. It does seem like, we'll see. There could be a slip up, could lose to Baltimore. There's still a possibility for the Eagles to get that number 1 seed. It's going to be a good one, man. And I think they opened up as 5-point favorites. I got a quick little lean to Baltimore in that spot. But I think the Niners win the football game. The Eagles clinched as well with, some help and some losses for some teams. 10-3, the Lions at 10-4. Big game for Detroit against Denver. Was feeling like the Broncos could keep that thing close. How about Sean Payton? I had a little bit of a freak out watching on Saturday. Did anybody else? Sean Payton with like the back-to-back non-challenges. Looked like Denver scored 2 touchdowns, and then they got hosed by the refs. It wasn't offside at all. And then they settled for a field goal down 21 points. What the heck was Sean Payton? And then he freaked out on Russ. Like, come on, man. Look in the mirror. Like, my goodness. Anyways, Detroit, nice bounce back game for Jared Goff. Jahmyr Gibbs, man, what a player. And Amon-Ra, we expected that performance from Amon-Ra in that game. Nice game for Detroit there. They got a couple games here against the Vikings, so that should be fun to see what happens to Detroit down the stretch. But there was some talk about maybe Minnesota squeaking in and getting the division. I don't think that's going to happen. The Bucks, how about the top 5 quarterback passers from week 5? You couldn't predict it. Nobody could have predicted this. Week 15, top 5 passing leaders. Baker Mayfield, 381. Joe Flacco, 374. Jake Browning, 324. Patrick Mahomes, 305. Okay, you may have that one. And then Nick Mullins at 303. Are you kidding me? This is the year of the backup, and I don't want to take anything away from Baker. We had a touchdown prop here for Chris Godwin. Expected that. Another big game from Godwin. The volume's been there, and I know he's burned owners, myself included, but the volume has been there, and Baker's played some really good football. He's got this Bucks team at 7-7. I tied the top spot here in the South with the Saints, and those two teams are going to play each other. Moving forward, Tampa's got Jacksonville, the Saints, and Carolina. The Saints have the Rams this Thursday night, the Bucks, Atlanta. Atlanta has Indy, Chicago, and New Orleans, but I think they're done. What a brutal loss for the Falcons. You can't trust this squad on the road. I picked them to win on the money line like just a sucker. Arthur Smith, man, he's got to be out the door. I know a lot of people really like this Falcons squad. I know that they check a lot of boxes for Aaron Schatz in terms of DVOA heading into the season. They definitely have some skilled players on the squad, right? I mean, they've drafted skilled players in the first round in each of the last 3 years, and Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson. But I get it was a sloppy weather game. It was pouring rain sideways, hard to hang onto the football. But even Tyler Algier was getting a lot of run inside the red zone using Cordell Patterson. The usage for Bijan Robinson is mind-boggling. The fact that they spent that top pick on him, he's clearly the best running back. He puts the ball on the ground, and then he doesn't touch the field at all after that. Roughly played 50% of the snaps, which is like the lowest he's played, I think, since like week 1 or 2. Maybe even the lowest on the season. Desmond Ridder is not it. He's just not it. I'm interested to see, like, from a draft standpoint, they have a top 10 pick all of a sudden. Like, this is the current NFL draft order. Got the Bears. Of course, they own Carolina's pick. I mean, Carolina traded all kinds of assets away, and DJ Moore and Christian McCaffrey. I think they made the wrong pick at number 1. Anyway, Chicago's got that top pick right now. New England, Arizona. We may have to sweat out this under 4.5 wins for Arizona. Arizona got a couple, I think, winnable games coming up. Washington, Chicago again. So right now looking like 2 top 5 picks. It's so fascinating to see what the Bears do. I honestly would like to see them keep Fields, get a new offensive mind in there, and get Marv. We'll see if Marv actually declares, may go back to Ohio for another year. I don't think that's the case, but we'll see, man. Maybe he's a little uncertain of what team he can go to here at the top. But a lot of these teams looking for quarterbacks, maybe Chicago, or do they trade into that pick and get a ton of capital? I think that's the play. Try to get Marv, nice defensive player. Defense is playing really, really good. Gave it up to Joe Flacco late, but they've been playing good football. And they made a lot of moves in the offseason that I liked on the defensive side. Washington, are they happy with Sam Howell? Probably. I mean, new coaching regime there in Washington. Kyler, could Atlanta trade for Kyler? That's a possibility. I think if I'm Arizona, I'm interested in Caleb Williams. Probably not going to have the first pick, though, but you could still get a quarterback and then maybe trade Kyler to a squad like the Falcons. Arthur Smith needs to go. I think he needs to go. And I think that if the Falcons don't make the playoffs, and they had one of the easiest schedules, and inside that division, losing, I think, would be enough to say, we're done. We're done with you. We'll move on. But I still think that they need a quarterback. The Titans, Will Levis looks like he avoided a serious injury, so they got themselves a quarterback. The Chargers, of course, they already have a quarterback. The Giants, I don't believe they're going to draft a quarterback, but you just never know. The Jets, they'll roll with, I guess, Rodgers for one more year. We'll see what happens there. But they're probably a playoff team if Aaron Rodgers played the entire season. I think so anyways. So interesting that the playoff, the draft order there. We'll see how it all unfolds. But as I said earlier, minus 690 for minus 650 for Caleb Williams over at DraftKings to be the first overall pick. Drake May there at plus 475. Daniels at 12-1. Marv Harrison Jr. at 20-1. We know he's not going to be number 1 overall. That would be total Chicago to pick him number 1 overall. but I don't think. We'll see what happens there. Here's the NFC playoff picture. Oh, I already looked at that. Oh yeah, I did want to just dive into this a little bit more. So Cowboys at 10-4, just total completely team away from Dallas. 3-4 on the road. It's possible they go into Tampa Bay. It's possible they go into, I would say, New Orleans. Probably the only two situations there. As I mentioned, the Bucks, Jacksonville, New Orleans, and Carolina coming up here, and the Saints have the Rams, Bucks, and Atlanta. So it finish up inside the division. Good game from Carr yesterday. Missing Olave and company. I thought he was pretty much on point. We'll see if they can keep things going here. The Vikings, 7-7, and the Rams. I think what you see here is what you're going to get. For Seattle tonight, a win would go a long way. Then they have Tennessee, Pittsburgh, and Arizona, so certainly some winnable games there. As for the Rams, two tough opponents coming up, like the Saints, they're 4-point favorites. The Giants, and then San Fran to wrap up the season. Maybe San Fran's resting players, potentially give them a little bit of a break. I actually really like where this Rams team is at right now. Kyron Williams is great. Another good game from him. Stafford has played great over the past few weeks. Cooper Kupp seems healthy. 3 games in a row with a touchdown. Another vintage Cooper Kupp game. Puka Nacua. So I think, LA, the Eagles don't want to face the Rams considering their past defense and what I've seen from their tackling issues and the ground game with Kyron Williams. That's an upset brewing with the Rams, maybe over the 2 seed, whether it's Philly, maybe they go into the 6 seed. I would like the Rams to go in Detroit as well. Sorry, JP. I would. Stafford against his old buddies in Detroit. Yeah. The Rams are a dangerous football team right now. I would not want to play them. I think the Falcons are out. We had the Bucks to beat the Packers. I just think they're completely overrated. Green Bay goes Carolina, Meaney, and Chicago. So certainly some winnable games there. They're going to have to win out. And the Seahawks are basically going to have to win it out as well. I don't think we'll see 2 from the NFC South. I think it's either the Bucks or the Saints. And you know what? My money's on the Bucks. To get in. And I've been in on the Saints all year long. Over at the AFC, the Ravens are the only team that's clinched here at 11-3. The Dolphins at 10-4. The Chiefs. So we see the Dolphins and Chiefs bounce back. The Jags, man, tough loss to Baltimore. They kind of hung around that game. I mean, McManus missed 2 field goals. Trevor Lawrence with the fumble inside the red zone. They left a lot of points on the board. No spike at the end of the game, at the end of the first half. They left a lot of points. They're better than I thought they would on offense against the Ravens. They wrap up Tampa, Carolina, and then Tennessee. So certainly some winnable games, but all of a sudden we got 3 teams now at 8-6 in the South. Jacksonville, the Colts, and the Texans. What a big win from Houston, man! My goodness, that was really impressive. They've had a lot of come from behind late wins. Case Keenum getting it done there in overtime. Houston has Cleveland, Tennessee, and Indy. Indy has Atlanta, Las Vegas, and Houston, and then the Jags, as I mentioned, have Tampa and Carolina and Tennessee. The Browns 9-5. The defense is probably the best in football. I mean, you can make a case Baltimore and Cleveland. I really like the Jets defense too, but lately they've kind of seemed like maybe a little bit checked out. Secondary is good, but Baltimore and Cleveland can certainly get after you. Cleveland has Houston, the Jets, and Cincy. And then the Bengals have Pittsburgh, KC, and Cleveland. So tough road for Cincy. Pittsburgh this week, yeah, but still divisional game on the road at KC. Tough one. Don't expect them to win. And then home to the Browns. The Browns probably have maybe the easier road, I would say, but it's still kind of very difficult. The team here that is on the outside looking in that we like here are the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills last night, a very impressive win at home, tough place to play. Really like what I've seen from Buffalo over the past couple weeks. I know they're missing a lot of guys on defense, but everybody's missing a lot of guys in defense. It's a ton of teams that are having some injuries, issues, especially in the secondary. But I like what Brady's done. It's the Buffalo Bills have been so one-dimensional. I remember the playoff game they had against the Colts. I think they ran the ball once in the first 25, 30 minutes of that football game. And everything has just been on Josh Allen. Josh Allen asked him to do too much all the time. And I think that's one of the reasons he leads the NFL in interceptions. And some of them have been careless, but I like these methodical drives, long drives. They did it against the Eagles. They did it against Kansas City. Run the football. This is not a shot on Allen. I like that they're not as one-dimensional. And I think they're a scary team to play. And usually they're favorites. They're going to get the home game. They're battling for the it's always nice to have the bye, but they're battling and the pressure seems to be on them and they just fold. And now this year it's like backs against the wall. They're playing playoff football, must-win situation. If they squeak in, If they squeak in and they play the Dolphins, a team that they could certainly beat, and they play the Chiefs, a team that they can certainly beat. We've seen it. We give them a benefit of the doubt against the Jags and whoever wins that division for sure. And I like where they're at more than the Colts, the Bengals, the Browns. Absolutely. And even maybe Jacksonville, right? Christian Kirk injury is huge. Defense hasn't played great lately. Buffalo wraps up with the Chargers, the Pats, and the Dolphins. They are very much alive to win this division. Very much alive to win this division. They are going to beat the Chargers this week, who gave up like 100 points on Thursday Night Football. They're going to beat New England at home. And I would say they have a really good chance of beating the Dolphins. I know that they lost in Miami last year, and Miami's been really good at home. But that was a weird game that they should have won. I think they have ran like a ton of plays on offense. They couldn't get it done. Miami's schedule is tough. Miami has, let me go. They got Dallas this week. We'll take a look at the early lines here. We're going a little long, but I see some people hanging out. I think we're having fun here on a Monday. Miami goes Dallas at Baltimore and then home to Buffalo. That is the toughest remaining schedule. Guaranteed. Cowboys at Ravens, then Bills. I think we could see Buffalo win this division still. What are the odds for the Bills to win the division? This is maybe the bet of the day. And then if that happens, Josh Allen will be in the MVP conversation. I don't know if it'll be enough to beat Brock Purdy. Unless Brock Purdy this week against the Ravens just has a dud football game, I think it's his award to lose. To win the AFC East plus 225. I'm going to put that one in the tracker actually right away because, for example, like this week, Buffalo playing, and by the way, Steelers are out of it. Broncos, that was a tough loss. Denver wraps up in New England, the Chargers and the Raiders. They could get 10 wins. I could certainly see them getting 10 wins, and maybe some of these other teams beat up on each other, like the Texans and the Colts, inside the division. Some of these other teams, like even the Browns and the Bengals, like they could beat up on each other, and we could see the Broncos squeak in. They're not totally out of it. That was a really tough loss for them, but I definitely like their remaining schedule. I think they're 3 Ws. I think they can get to 10 wins. But the Bills at plus 225 here because as we take a look at the early lines, if, for example, Dallas goes into Miami and beats them, which I have the lean right now to the Cowboys winning that football game. And I know road splits, and we got another test here for Dallas. Beat somebody good and beat somebody on the road. These odds will go away because there's no bounce back performance here from the Chargers. And I know they fired their coach and everybody, and we see that spark. And I'm sure the guys are going to want to play. That line has moved to 12. Wow. Buffalo's going to win that game. And if Buffalo wins that game and Dallas beats Miami, you're not going to get plus 225 anymore. So schedule is pretty good for the Bills, and it's very, very tough here for Miami. Quick look here at the look ahead lines here. See if we can find any edges before things do change. I like the Saints, the Rams at home. I really like where their offense is at. I don't think we'll see too much movement in that number. It's possible we get a field goal game here. Is Chris Olave ready to go on Thursday Night Football? I really like where this Rams team is at offensively, and I think their defense is playing pretty good as well. The Bengals at 2.5, I will take that, even if it's on the road. I just got more faith in this Bengals offense right now. Of course, they will be without Jamar Chase, and Jamar Chase is separated shoulder. Not sure we see him again. Tough is going to be one of those like ugly games, not a lot happening. But I really like where Jake Browning is at. Made us sweat it out against the Vikings. Did he ever? But he came back strong late in that football game. Just the Steelers, they just can't get anything going on offense. And now they got to turn to Mason Rudolph. What a disaster. Like the Bills, even this is a large number. I don't know. Does it get up to 13.5, 14.5? I'm not going to get too crazy here on this spread. Like we typically see bounce back performances across the board when there is some sort of coaching change. And I'm sure the Chargers are going to be jacked to play football without Staley. Does Keenan Allen come back? Does he play? Do they shut down Austin Eckler? These are all questions that I have at the moment about the Chargers. Easton Stick did okay, man. Like he did okay in that game. I thought both quarterbacks and Aiden O'Connell and Easton Stick were pretty good. Easton, the hockey stick, he got it done. He played good. I mean, there's a couple of turnovers, of course, that he had. But what do you want from him? I mean, his defense is awful. Detroit and Minnesota should be a really good one here. I got the lean to Detroit at -3. It should be a good football game. Nick Mullins did some okay things, but he was pretty sporadic with the football, pretty careless at times there. But he gave his team a chance to win the football game. There's no question about that. Seattle and Tennessee. We'll see the status on Levis. Ultimately, like, it would be better news for Tennessee if it was Tannehill under center to win the football game. I'm not jumping to make any bets in that Seattle Tennessee game at the moment. Cleveland and Houston, the Browns checking in as 2.5-point dogs. Will CJ Stroud be ready to go? Noah Brown filled in nicely, didn't he? Just like he did earlier in the year when there was no Nico Collins. He filled in great. We sweated out Dalton Schultz catch prop and receiving yard prop. We had a sprinkle on the touchdown. Almost had it. Got stopped, I think, near the goal line. But this is an interesting game, and this one we're talking about some other teams that could squeak in, right? One of these teams are going to lose. So Buffalo going to gain a game. Denver most likely going to gain a game. Somebody here has to lose. Maybe the Bengals gain a game as well. I would say maybe Cleveland, like Flacco and Njoku. These guys got something going on. Amari Cooper is playing some decent football. Flacco he's, as we said last week, he's better than a majority of the backups. He's probably the best backup in the league. No, maybe one of them. Minshew. No, I don't know. Is there a better backup? I don't know. Off the top of my head, I don't think. Like, Browning's done some really good things, but he's only played 4 games. Anyways, Flacco did some brutal things yesterday. He was careless with the football, had some picks, but he also made some great anticipation throws with the game on the line. He avoided the pressure a couple times. He's experienced, right? He's an MVP, Super Bowl MVP. He's got some experience. Remember the elite conversations back in the day with Joe Flacco? Those were fun. Right now, I have the lean to Cleveland going in and beating Houston. I don't even want to touch this Colts and Falcons game. I don't know. I don't care. I suppose Indy does sound like Zach Moss is going to miss a little bit of time. So I don't know. There were some decent, Jamar Chase going down, Zach Moss going down, Keaton Mitchell going down. Hopefully you're fine as you head into the semis and the finals. I don't think there's a lot of waiver wire stuff here at this time of the season. What you got is what you got, and you're kind of rolling with what you got. But if there's no Moss, I mean, Trey Sermon's going to be a guy that we'll be interested in, right? I mean, 17 carries and 88 yards against the Falcons, really good run defense, but you just can't ignore that type of work. 15 plus carries. It's kind of like the Zamir White thing, a low end RB2. Ty Chandler had a great game, right? Is another guy that maybe you picked up, you rolled out as a RB2 or a flex. Sermon will be in that conversation as well. And you empty the fab if you need it. If you hung on this long, you do what you can. Again, this is why we preference, or we just talk about having handcuffs and just having all next man up as much as you can. Washington and the Jets. Oh man. Yeah. I'd say Washington maybe goes in and pulls that one off. I don't know. Green Bay and Carolina here. So I've been saying the Packers are overrated. I was impressed with the comeback from Love when against the Chargers and the win against the Lions. They beat the Chiefs. That was great. And I think everybody just overreacted. They went in against the Giants as 6.5-point favorites and lost. And then they lost at home as like 4.5-point favorites against the Bucks. I think that they can go in and beat Carolina, but I'm not going to be too confident on laying more than 3 points against this Packers squad with this Packers squad. Aaron Jones returned at some touches. They'll beat Carolina. But I don't think it'll be a blow. Tampa and Jacksonville here. I've just been riding with the Bucks, man, and I've just been riding them the past few weeks. Really like where they're at. It should be a good one. Should be a good game. I'd lean with Tampa Bay here at the moment at home. I like Dallas, as I said earlier, 1.5. I think they should be a really good football game. I'll lean with them. I would expect Tyreek Hill to play in that game. Hopefully you advance with Tyreek Hill not playing yesterday. He was out there running around, doing some cutting. It looked like to me he looked fine, but maybe just looking ahead at what's to come, which we talked earlier, a very tough schedule for the Dolphins. Chicago at home to Arizona here. I would assume the Bears would would want to lose this game, get a couple, top 3 picks potentially, but I'd say that's like a field goal game. We'll see about Kyler, right? Is it Kyler? Do they rest him and sit him down for a bit? I'd say Chicago, as well as their defense. The defense is playing pretty good. I'd give them the edge in that game. Denver, that's a big spread for a Broncos team at 6, but Zappy just turns the ball over all the time. That'd be a low-scoring game. I don't think too much will happen offensively. That's a big spread too with the Chiefs. Mahomes does own everybody inside the division. Did lose to Russ and the Broncos earlier in this year. How about Rashee Rice? This guy's also a league winner. Really good stuff. CEH with the touchdown yesterday. A couple catches at the backfield. McKinnon tossed a touchdown. McKinnon is doing the same thing he did last year, just finding the end zone, whether it's a receiving or a touchdown, rushing, or a passing touchdown. It's a big spread too for the Eagles. These two divisional spreads, I think, are just too large. Still some issues with Mahomes and company in the offense. It was Belichick, but Tony again, another just drop pass that turned into a pick. How many lives does Kadarius Toney have? But Rashee Rice is more yards combined than MVS and Tony and Sky Moore. He's been really, really good over the past few weeks. You got yourself a good one, Kansas City and Rashee Rice. Baltimore and San Fran. That's too big for me. I don't like that. That 5.5, I get it. The Niners have got a 6-game winning streak. All the wins have been double-digit wins. It's just too big. That's too big of a spread. I like Baltimore cover that game. 50-minute mark. Woo, we've gone long. I wanted to kind of keep these things short for people, concise with some picks, but I see some people are hanging out, asking some questions. I got some hockey stuff right now. Goff for MVP? No chance. Absolutely zero chance Jared Goff can win MVP. And I don't mean that as a shot at you. I don't. Jordan, I almost called you Jordan Daily Handle. There's just no chance. I mean, he's been too careless with the football. There's no chance. What else we got here? Yeah, unfortunately, Keaton Mitchell, man, that guy, it just gives them something else. You know what I mean? Like, defenses have to respect the outside runs of Keaton Mitchell because Gus Edwards just can't do that. He's like a straight downhill runner. Keaton Mitchell can bust one. We've seen it so many times on the outside. He's so explosive. I feel for him, man. He had the knee injury and he missed the first part of the season. And I really do feel for him. He's a really good player. Rooting for him to come back. I cannot deal with another Trey Sermon saga. Yeah. Oh man. But hey, you're probably going to get 15 plus touches out of him if there's no Moss. Bears D on fire right now. They are playing really good. I would like to, as a Bears fan, you probably wanted to see, I know you're probably happy with what you saw. Like, they played good. Fields had some moments and they lost the game, and you get a better draft pick. Okay. So for hockey tonight, there's a few that I like here. I'm going to start with Gabe Vilardi. Gabe Vilardi over 2.5 shots plus 100 and a point at minus 140. I really like this top line for the Jets over at Bet365. We're going to have the top line to all pick up a point at plus 210 and for each of them to have 2 points. We'll do the unit on the shot and the point, the shots and the point. He had 3+ shots. This line in general over the last 4 games is 19 points. Of course, he's stepping in for an injured Kyle Connor. And Vilardi is one of those guys, like if you read the Fantasy Hockey Draft Kit, the guide, it was one of my sleepers, breakout campaign for him. Just the injury happened, and now he's back, and unfortunately the injury happened to Kyle Connor, but he's got 6 points in his last 2. He's got 4 goals over his last 4. The shots 3, 3, 3, and 4. Plus money here for 3 shots. A matchup against the Habs. I like that line a lot. They're going to be pretty chalky in DFS. They're super cheap, but the line popped off against 2 really good teams last week in LA and Colorado, and now they get the Habs here. So I like that line to continue. I don't mind eating a little bit of chalk in DFS, get different elsewhere. I definitely like those 3. And I think maybe to get different elsewhere, you game stack it. Maybe you get the Habs line in there and Caulfield, Suzuki, and Slavkovsky. Those 3 have been playing pretty decent lately as well. But I'm definitely in on that top line for the Jets. I think Ehlers is in play at 3.5. Going to go to Barkov here next at 2.5 shots at minus 134. I think this Florida game could be pretty fun. I like the Panthers at minus 120. It's my favorite side on the board. Barkov's been shooting quite a bit. If you look at the last few games, 7-4-3, 5-3, 2-4-3. He's got a handful of 5 goals here over the last 7 or 8 games. Point per game guy, we know that. Florida finally broke out against the Oilers. They were shut out against Seattle and Vancouver. Edmonton can't get a save. They need to make something happen between the pipes. But I like Barkov here at over 2.5 shots against the Flames at minus 134. There's kind of a lot that I like in this Calgary and Florida game tonight. There's some fun revenge spots. It's not the only reason I like it, but I'll go start here with Brendan Montour first for a point at plus 100. And over 2.5 shots at minus 120. He's just logging so much ice. He had 5 shots the other night. He hasn't been as consistent, let's say, as he was last year into the playoffs. But remember, he missed the first 2 months of the season, recovering from shoulder surgery. And what I like from him is just the usage: 24 minutes, 22, 23, 23, 25. He's coming off a 2-point night, a power play point, maybe breaking out here a little bit. He just got 4 points in 14 games with the ice time, on top of what the Panthers can do offensively, on top of how I don't believe in the Flames, and a lot of shot attempts from him. So 5 in the last game, 6 4 games ago. He had another game with 5 and another game with 4. So it's been hot and cold, right? But like the odds, like the usage, like the matchup, like him to hit the score sheet. And then 2 guys that are some revenge spots here. Let's go with Mackenzie Weegar, staying inside the same game with a defenseman, plus 135 for a point and plus 105 for 3 shots. Weegar has been really good. And I think Sutter held him back last year. I think Sutter was like one of those, no, you can't be going end to end. We need your defensive game. But he was so good in Florida when they just let him go. And that's what Calgary is letting him do. He's joining the rush. He's skating. He's getting some power play time. He's also logging heavy minutes: 22, 24, 23, 25, 23, 24. He's got points in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 of his last 12 games. Quietly, right? His ownership is just only now above the 80% mark over in Yahoo. And he's been shooting as well. I would say I'd go with the point over the shot, but a couple games here, 4, 6, 3, 5, 3 the other night. But if you just want one bet from the 2 that I just gave, Montour point, Weegar point. The shots are kind of like secondary. I'd go the full unit on the shots, maybe half a unit. But these are things that I have inside the tracker. And then Sam Bennett, another little fun revenge narrative type of thing here. But I just been waiting for Sam Bennett to break out. And he finally broke out in his last game. He had a goal. He had 3 points. He had a power play point. He had 3 shots. He went like 6 or 7 games in a row with just 1 or 2 shots. Yes, the revenge does creep in a little bit in my mind. He's playing on the line with Tkachuk. Both guys going back to Calgary here as revenge spots. But Carter Verhaeghe, I just like that line when Verhaeghe's on it. And Paul Maurice does these. He switches them up. We've got Evan Rodriguez up on that top line with Barkov and Reinhart. I feel like Verhaeghe is the guy that this is the straw that stirs the drink. I mean, Reinhart and Barkov have been fine, but I like that line a little bit more when Verhaeghe's on it. I like the second line a little bit more when Verhaeghe's on it. I just think he's the finisher. He's the guy that can get Bennett a point. Tkachuk is looking for the pass. So I'm in on Bennett over 2.5 shots and for him to pick up a point. Again, I like the points more than the shots. These shot props are not juiced, but the points have been a little bit more. They've been more worth our time this year than the shot props have. I do have some same game parlay stuff here, like Barkov and Reinhart for a point at plus 105. I got the entire second line for a point at plus 250. I got Kaprizov and Boldy here for a point at minus 105. Boldy's been unbelievable since the coaching change. We see sparks in players all the time when coaching changes happen, and we've seen one in Matt Boldy, and I just like that he's on that first line. He's just never really playing with anybody good on the second line. So they take Zuccarello off the line, they put him with Joel Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov, and he's scoring goals, and he's picking up points. DeBrincat and Kane, I'm not sure what the lines are going to look like in Detroit tonight, but the Ducks are in a tough spot. Second half of a back-to-back, played last night, lead the NHL in penalty minutes taken. They get like 50 more than the next closest team. And the next closest team is actually Detroit, followed by Montreal. But big boost tonight in the lineup, getting Larkin back. I did write up the entire power play just because of the Ducks taking so many penalties in the second half of a back-to-back on the road. Maybe Gibson out here hurt. But DeBrincat and Kane, I think the two are going to stay away from each other at 5-5, but they could connect together in a power play, so to speak. JT Compher in there as well. I think what we'll see is DeBrincat. And I'm just guessing. I think we'll see DeBrincat with Larkin and then Kane with Compher. We'll see how that plays out. I'll probably tweet it out when the lines are official. Follow my guy Max Bolton over at The Athletic, who covers the Red Wings. I got a tweet in him having the power play line that had everybody stacked. They had DeBrincat, Kane, Larkin, Compher, and Gostisbehere on that first power play unit. I think Detroit scores like 4 or 5 goals here tonight. This is a parlay. These are just guys that I think will hit the score sheet. They're all around minus 160, so a little bit steep to take as singles. DeBrincat, Ehlers, Boldy, and Verhaeghe for points. It's from DraftKings at plus 587. So that is it. Oh yeah, I do have a couple more. Cole Caulfield over 3.5 shots at minus 106. I've really liked that line over the past couple of days, Suzuki and Slavkovsky and Caulfield. I think the Canadiens may upset the Jets here tonight. I'm usually never on them. And then Josh Anderson. One thing I want to say about Josh Anderson, and I've heard athletes talk about this all the time, and I'm not, don't take this the wrong way. I don't call myself an athlete. But I'll tell you what, I played hockey for like 35 years. And I played with some good players. I played with a lot of good teams. And, Anderson said this too, like, when you're not scoring, things are you're stressed. You're not shooting. You're hesitant. You second guess yourself. You pass it off, and then when you start scoring, it's like you're just shooting all the time. So Josh Anderson had an empty net goal December 4th. It was the first goal that he scored, and ever since then, I've just seen a different player. It's like you feel a little bit better. You're getting a little bit more ice time, which he is getting, and the shots have been there. The past 4 games, 6, 4, 4, and 4, plus 125. We had it the other night for him to have 3 shots. He had 6. He scored 2 goals. He scored the first time against a goalie in like a year. So he's got 3 goals here over his last 6 games. Again, he only has 3 goals on the season, but he is shooting. He's playing with a bunch of confidence. I saw practice with, they had the net and then another net on the side. So it was just like the top few inches of him trying to pick corners. I don't know. That's maybe, it seemed to work. Anyways, certainly stressed not getting any goals, but once you get a couple, it's like Boldy. Once you get a couple, you start getting in a groove, you get some puck luck, and things just start happening for you. I know it sounds silly. It really does. But unless you played hockey or you followed it your whole life, you understand that that's a thing that just happens. You go through these slumps, you score a couple, you start feeling yourself a little bit. You start shooting a little bit more, and that's what's happening here with Josh Anderson. And then Matt Duchene for a point. I really like this second line for Dallas. You know how much I love the first line, and I think that they're in play for a same-game parlay tonight against the Kraken. You're going to have, by the way, Wedgwood. If you're a Jake Ottinger owner, you need to pick up Wedgwood. Not sure the extent of the injury, but every time you hear an MRI, it's not what you want to hear. That top line with Pavelski and Rupe Hintz and Robertson are plus 200 for a point, and I'll be in on that tonight. I'm not going to lie. But I like the second line tonight from a DFS standpoint. They're cheap. And they've been playing really good. And they've been the most consistent line for Dallas basically all year long. For Matt Duchene, he's got 8 goals and 16 assists on the season. So he's been a point per game player, basically. He's got points in 3 straight and 5 of his last 6. He's got 2 multi-point games over that span as well. Minus 130. He's on that first power play. It's just his odds are pretty good for a guy to get a point. And then I have a little bit of a sprinkle here on the entire line to pick up a point. That one's maybe like a half a unit at 4-1. Seguin, Marchment, and Duchene. They've been pretty rock solid. Okay, late, but you made it. Welcome in. Any good player props today? Metcalf, Walker score touchdown as Hurts playing. Okay, so just jumping in, we were just about to bounce. I'll go over again here quick time before we get out of here, but if you want like more detail and reasoning behind it, just check out the start of the show where we dove into some player props here tonight. I think that both teams are going to lean on the ground game. As for Jalen Hurts, it sounds like he's going to play. It does also sound like he's very, very sick. I heard Adam Schefter on the Pat McAfee show this morning say that he traveled with the team, or he traveled away from the team solo here today. Not to get anybody else sick, but if this was a Sunday night game, he wouldn't play. I think he's going to power through, but what do I know? It's just an educated guess. I'm sure we're going to hear something here very soon. Very, very soon. I would stay away from any Jalen Hurts props. You can have some fun Michael Jordan flu game. I just, none of that stuff really matters to me. But I think both teams will lean on the ground game because we know that Geno is most likely out of this football game. So I got Walker here at over 11.5 rushing attempts. Probably my favorite bet in the football game. The over 11.5 rushing attempts, the over 8.5 receiving yards. I have him for over 45.5 rushing yards and over 1.5 receptions. As I said earlier in the show, I think that the time was split between him and Charbonnet last week because it was his first game back. Tough matchup. I think Seattle goes back to leaning on Kenneth Walker like they did at the start of the season. The Eagles have struggled tackling. They've struggled on the ground over the past couple weeks as well. They're without their starting quarterback. The Eagles without their starting quarterback. So I think both teams will lean, and maybe not without Jalen, but 100% not going to be the case. Walker, 11.5 rushing attempts. Last week, 4 catches in the game. He had 5 targets. He had 33 receiving yards. So Locke, couple check downs. We have him for The rushing attempt prop is the one that doesn't have the biggest edge according to our projections. That's just a feeling that I have. I think he gets in the 13, 14 carry range. We have him for, I think, 13 and a half receiving yards and 1.8 catches, but 8.5 receiving yards in the over 45. We have him for over 50 rushing yards in our tracker, in our projections. And then I'll go to Swift. This one, again, seems probably pretty risky, but I just think that both teams are going to run the football here tonight. DeAndre Swift at over 13 and a half rushing attempts, over 55.5 rushing yards, and over 12 and a half receiving yards. Jackson Smith-Njigba had a team high 7 targets last week with Drew Lock under center. He got 4 of them for 25 yards. I'm not in on the receiving yards. I just like the catch prop at 3.5 at -115. And then the Eagle that I am feeling, and I'll just say maybe you wait until you hear about Jalen Hurts, but this is just something I'm always in on when it comes to Devontae Smith. His receiving yard prop is just always too low. The catch prop at 4.5. If it's Marcus Mariota, I'm just going to completely stay away from all of this stuff. I will just be involved in Swift, in the attempts, the rushing yards, the receiving yards. I'm going to shy away from all Philly pass catchers. I like the under tonight, and I like Seattle to cover. I think the Eagles win by a field goal. I already have the +3.5. Before the Hurts news, I had it. And now hearing the Hurts news, I like it even more. This is what I had for touchdowns. Now, I just don't see a lot of offense. My dart throw is Noah Fant because the Eagles have been really bad against tight ends. 6 touchdowns to the position. There's a little bit of a rapport from Drew Lock and Fant in the Denver days, and he did finish the game with 4 targets and 35 receiving yards last week against San Fran, which was a tough spot. I think we're out of here, guys. I see a bunch of people jumping in here now. I think we've gone long enough. We went over the playoff picture, went over some MVP stuff. The Niners are +225 to win the Super Bowl. I think, an exact may be the way to go at this time if you're not already in on San Fran. I think they're the best team in football, and I don't think it's particularly close. I think that they're going to cruise through the NFC conference and get to the Super Bowl. And I think he could do some sort of like exact Baltimore and San Fran. I think that's the way to go, like a couple little flyers on Baltimore, San Fran, or Baltimore and KC, or Baltimore and Buffalo, or sorry, San Fran and Baltimore, San Fran and KC, or San Fran and Buffalo. Those are the 3 teams in the AFC that I think are cream of the crop. Appreciate you, JP. Good luck, guys. Enjoy the football game. A follow at Chris Meaney, a follow to the show, subscribe, smash the like button, all those solids would go a long way. FTN, a bet tracker, all the picks are there across all sports: NHL, NBA, NFL, PGA, tennis. We give them all, and you get everybody's picks across all sports in the Discord channel, projections, tools. It's all there for you. FTN wins, save you a little bit of cash, but hit me up if you have any questions at all about tonight. Good luck. Hopefully you guys get it done, man. I'm going to sweat this out too. I need some points. I need Jalen Hurts not to go off in a couple leagues. I need Jalen Hurts to go off in a couple leagues. It's going to be a fun day for everybody that has everything on the line when it comes to fantasy football. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Cheers.